Hello and welcome to my electoral analysis of the 2018 Senate map. This video is about toss-up states where there is no clear advantage to either party. We've previously done videos on safe seats for the Democrats, which is a video, and also one for the Republicans, which is a separate video. And we've also done videos on likely seats, which are states that do not lean, or seats that do not lean too much. They don't lean so much as to be safe, but they have a significant lean in one party's direction. So watch that video, please like it, etc., etc. We've also done some on lean. We've done a video on lean states where they lean towards one party or another. Go watch that too. Anyway, so we're going to get right into the toss-up states. There's a lot of them. We'll start with Nevada. This is the sole Republican state on this list. The 2018 map is difficult for Democrats because there are not many top-tier targets. This is the only state that Hillary Clinton carried that has a Republican senator. Aside from Maine, actually, there's several states that have Republican senators. What I should say is the only state that she carried in 2016 that has a senator up for re-election in 2018. That senator is Republican Senator Dean Heller, who was elected in 2012, even as a Democratic presidential candidate. Barack Obama carried the state. Heller won by like a little over a percentage point. It was a very close race. There's not really anything to indicate that he's extremely in danger in 2018, except for the fact that Clinton carried the state. But there also is the fact that he won while Obama carried the state. So he does have a bipartisan appeal. It was also a presidential year where Democratic turnout is higher. And in most cases, statewide politics in Nevada are dominated by the Republican Party, although that has changed slightly with the 2016 elections. One potential Democratic candidate would be Representative Dina Titus, who has looked at the race. She has not decided whether she'll run or not. Were she to run, it could be very competitive. I'm not going to say either party has an advantage, but it would be a high-profile race, and there would be a lot of money, especially from the Democrat side, since this is one of their only good targets this election season. Moving to Montana, we have Democratic Senator Jon Tester, who was first elected in 2006 in a Democratic wave year. He was reelected in 2012. Both times he won with a plurality and has never achieved a majority of the vote. The first time he toppled Republican Senator Conrad Burns, who was a conservative, maybe too conservative for Montana. Montana's sort of a center-right state. It has a Democratic governor, and currently Tester and that Democratic governor are the only statewide elected Democrats. 2016 was a wave that just swept Republicans into office and Democrats out in Montana, I should say, not nationwide necessarily. Tester faced Republican Congressman Denny Reberg in 2012. Reberg was a top-tier candidate. He barely lost. Tester barely won. It was largely because of Libertarians siphoning off Republican votes. The Libertarian Party of Montana has about a 3% share of the electorate, maybe a little bit more. So that is widely seen as the reason Tester was reelected. He was a top-tier candidate or Republican target in 2012. So, yeah, it's a toss-up. We're going to say there's been several candidates mentioned. Ryan Zink, former Congressman Ryan Zink, who has since been appointed to the Department of the Interior and President Trump's candidate, was considered the leading contender. He has since probably not going to run since he's been appointed to the cabinet. Another potential candidate would be Montana Attorney General Tim Fox, who surprisingly is part of the thin Montana GOP bench. So we'll see if he decides to run. It seems like he may. We'll see. So that's a toss-up. Moving to North Dakota. North Dakota has a Democratic Senator, Heidi Heitkamp, who was first elected in 2012. She was filling the seat of a retiring Democrat, and it looked like Congressman Rick Berg, North Dakota's sole congressman in 2012, would defeat her. He was up in the polls by about 5.7%, and Heitkamp won by less than a percentage point. So it's a very tight race. Romney won the state by a decent but not overwhelming margin. It was an overwhelming margin, but less than what the margin was in 2016. Heitkamp has not decided whether she will run for re-election or not, largely, in my view, because of the Republican leanings of the state. The dynamics are against her. If she were to retire, it would be almost a sure Republican pickup. She is pretty much the only chance for Democrats to hold the seat. And so that's kind of the situation for North Dakota. That's obviously, we're going to put that as a toss-up. It is on the map, as you can see. We're going to move to Wisconsin now. Wisconsin has a Democratic Senator, Tammy Baldwin, who was first elected in 2012 against former Republican Governor Tommy Thompson. Thompson was a top recruit for the GOP in Wisconsin. The one caveat in that race, there's two. First of all, Baldwin's margin of victory roughly mirrored President Obama's margin in 2012 in Wisconsin, as well as the fact that Thompson faced a bruising primary and had to spend a lot of money to win the primary, and then he had less for the general election, whereas Baldwin did not face a primary challenge. And so that is widely seen as helping her. It looks like the Wisconsin GOP will have more of an anointed candidate in 2018, just to ensure if their best chance at picking up the seat. Baldwin is very liberal and is seen somewhat as out of step with Wisconsin values. The GOP's tactic in Wisconsin has been to paint statewide candidates as out-of-touch liberals who don't care about the rest of Wisconsin, and they have been successful in that. Baldwin is very liberal, and she's also from the big cities, which are another talking point for Republicans in the state as far as out-of-touch goes. She is extremely liberal, as I mentioned before, voting record. She's roughly mirrors Elizabeth Warren and maybe Sanders. So she's obviously someone the Republicans would like to knock off. Wisconsin has another senator from the Republican Party, Ron Johnson, who won re-election by a comfortable margin in 2016, even as Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump carried the state. Wisconsin also has a conservative governor, Scott Walker, who has won re-election several times by decent margins. And so we'll see if Baldwin's victory was largely as a result of President Obama's coattails, but nonetheless, it's marked as a toss-up. We're going to see how that plays out. Moving to Missouri, we have Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, who was first elected in 2006. She unseated Republican Senator Jim Talent and won re-election in 2012 by a landslide. We have several caveats about this race. First, in 2006, it was a wave year, and Talent was seen as close to President Bush, who was very unpopular at the time. And that is we see that as part of the reason why McCaskill won. She won narrowly. And then in 2012, she faced a Tea Party challenger, Todd Akin, who was not ready for prime time and made some comments about abortion and rape that were out of touch with enough Missouri voters to ensure that he would be defeated by McCaskill. She also was instrumental in getting him the Republican nomination. She considered that he would be the easiest to beat. This time around, several Republican representatives from Missouri, Ann Wagner and Vicky Hartzler, are considering the race, as well as the Missouri Attorney General. He's a Republican who just won election. Were he to run, it could be a very close race. Were any of them to run, it almost looks like a Republican pickup. The one caveat is the race was a top Republican target in 2012, and McCaskill did end up winning. So she has outperformed expectations before, but we're going to mark this as a toss-up. It might lean in the Republicans' direction if they can get a good candidate, and it looks like they may. So, moving to Indiana. Indiana has a Democratic Senator, Joe Donnelly, who was first elected in 2012, very, very narrowly. Even as he had a similar situation to McCaskill in Missouri, he faced a Tea Party challenger, Richard Mourdock, who was not ready for prime time. He was the state treasurer and made similar comments about rape that were out of touch with enough Indiana voters to ensure his defeat. Nonetheless, Donnelly only won by a very narrow percentage point, so it looks as though he may have a much harder race in 2018. So we're going to mark this as a toss-up. It's maybe going to move towards lean Republican, especially since Donnelly he has marketed himself as a moderate, but he has been critical of Trump, and so therefore Trump carried the state by like 19 points, and so it could be an interesting race and may lean in the Republican direction in the future. Moving to Ohio, Ohio has a Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who was first elected in 2006. He unseated Republican Senator Mike DeWine, who has moved on in Ohio politics and is the state attorney general. Brown faced a challenge in 2012 from Republican boy wonderkind in Ohio, Josh Mandel. He's a state treasurer. Mandel has announced a rematch, and several polls have shown him leading Brown by anywhere from 1 to 5 percentage points. So this is kind of a not good news for Brown. However, he has won 2 statewide races, so we're not going to mark it as lean Republican. Trump did carry Ohio by a significant margin, almost 2 points less than 10 points, 8.5 or something. And also it's been harder for Democrats to compete in Ohio as it has moved rightward. The other senator from the state, Republican Rob Portman, beat a former Democratic governor, Ted Strickland, by over 20 points. It was a massive landslide. And so that's kind of the state of the race in Ohio. Moving to Pennsylvania, we have Democratic Senator Bob Casey, who won election in 2006 in a Democratic wave year. He unseated Senator Rick Santorum by a landslide and then cruised to a similar but less impressive victory in 2012. The state was carried by President Trump by a narrow margin, and there has been several representatives, congressmen from the state have indicated interest. One has declined to run, Pat Meehan. There's also Lou Barletta, who's a Trump ally in the state, and Mike Kelly, who's another ally, both immigration hawks. And so that was one of the big issues for Trump in Pennsylvania and could indicate more statewide success. So it's marked as a toss-up. Casey markets himself as a pro-life, pro-gun Democrat, but since from 2006, he has moved leftward and does not vote the party or the pro-life line, nor on guns. He's actually voted to fund Planned Parenthood and has also voted for gun control. Okay, so moving to West Virginia. West Virginia has a Democratic Senator, Joe Manchin, who was first elected in 2010 and then re-elected in 2012. He was elected in 2010 to fill the seat of Robert Byrd. Byrd died in 2010, and Manchin appointed an interim Senator Cart Goodwine to the seat, and then ran for it himself when he scheduled the election when his term as West Virginia governor expired. So he won re-election in 2012 by 23.95 percentage points. Trump carried the state by 42 points, and so the race largely depends on whether Trump can, or whether Manchin can cushion himself with Trump voters. Twice he's faced Republican candidate John Race, who is more of a perennial candidate, not exactly formidable. He's he has come close to winning statewide races, but nothing recently. He's lost spectacularly, and he's come close. So Republicans have a top-tier candidate in Congressman Evan Jenkins, who's announced his bid. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey may also run, and that would indicate a brutal primary. Jenkins would be more along the establishment Republican line, although he markets himself as a conservative, whereas Patrick Morrisey would be more conservative in thought and action. There's also a coal miner, Bo Copley, who confronted Hillary Clinton about coal comments. He has announced his run. It's unlikely that he'll actually receive the nomination, although anything can happen, obviously. Statewide, that would probably be a weaker candidate for Manchin, but Manchin obviously is a wily campaigner, and he's more seen as a conservative Democrat, but he's more moderate than one would consider conservative. So that's kind of West Virginia. We're marking it as a toss-up because the state leans extremely Republican, and the Democrat label may be enough just to sink Manchin alone. Moving to Florida. Florida is the last seat on this in this video that we're going to cover. It has a Democratic Senator, Bill Nelson, who was first elected in 2000. He is he's the most popular elected Democrat in Florida and is actually the only one statewide. He may face a challenge from Florida Governor Rick Scott, who has expressed interest in a run and is considering it. Some Nelson advisors have even floated the possibility that Nelson could be defeated by Scott, especially since Scott would have a fundraising advantage. He's a wealthy millionaire and could self-fund his campaign. Whereas Nelson was seen as centrist in 2000 and has since moved somewhat liberal. He has voted the party line in most things, and he has opposed most of Trump's agenda, including Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch. Trump did carry the state by 2 million votes, which translates to about 2 percentage points in Florida, since the population is so large. But that is still a significant margin, and Nelson would have to cushion himself with Trump voters in order to win re-election. Trump also has an above-water approval rating in Florida, although it fluctuates just back and forth a little bit, since Florida is obviously very polarized, and a little bit of a shift can indicate a whole different playing field. So anyway, that's our analysis for the toss-up states. Thank you for watching. Like the video, comment below, and subscribe. Thank you.